Oh my god, I want to beat this race. The finish line is right over there, but I'm moving so slow right now. Oh my god, I wish I have the energy to just go fast right now. Wait a minute. What the? Would you like to buy Run Like the Wind for 100 Robux? You know what? That's actually not that bad of an idea. If it means that I can finish this race faster. All right, let's click this. Wait. Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, that was really fast. Oh my goodness. Well, aren't I glad I cheated the system? Okay, sorry about that. Going back to what was happening here with the game, what the game decided to do was it prompted me this purchase. Now, if you remember from our last video with game passes, this kind of does look like a game pass, but if we do buy it and then the purchase has been successful, we can run extremely fast, but we can prompt the same purchase again, and then we can consistently buy this, regardless of if we have ownership of this product or not. And this is what's called a developer product, where we can basically buy the same product repeatedly over and over again. That can give us like some sort of advantage to the game that doesn't require us just to buy it one time. It allows us to buy it multiple times. That's what I'm going to be teaching you how to implement in this video with developer products. And I'm also going to sprinkle in using data stores in this video so that we can track our purchase history. But with that being said, let's go ahead and add dev products to our game. Now that we understand it, let's add developer products to our game. But the first thing we want to do is make sure that our game is published. So if you haven't published your game yet, I advise doing that first before continuing. But if you have already published your game, what we're going to do is go up to game settings, and then we're going to go to security down here, and we want to make sure that we have this enabled, enable studio access to API services. Just make sure this one's checked, and then we should pretty much just be good to go. All right, so now that we have that set up, let's create our first dev product. And this is going to be located within our monetization tab right here. And then if we scroll down, we can see that there's a developer product section here with a create button. So what we're going to do is create this. And then what's going to happen is it's going to automatically create a developer product for us down here in this dev product list. There's no product ID yet because we need to hit save before Roblox creates an asset ID for this product that we can use for our own game. So we have a product name, we have a product ID, and we have a price for it too. And if we want to modify it, we can just click these three dots that are over here, and then we can click edit. So we can edit the name of this to be whatever we want it to be. We can just say my first product or something like that. And then we can change the price as well to whatever we want it to be. Maybe like 200 Robux, doesn't really matter too much. So then what we're going to do is hit save. So then what should happen is if we go back to our game settings, go to monetization, then we should see our new product down here, as we called it, my first product, with the product ID. So what we're going to do now is, just like in the Game Passes video, we're going to take this ID so that we can use it inside of our game to give to the player. So we're going to hit copy ID to clipboard, and then we're going to just close out of this. So that's basically how we create our Game Pass. Now, in order for us to prompt the purchase for the player, so that like if they're playing the game, we want the UI to drop down so that we can ask the player if they want to buy this, we're going to do this on the local side using a local script. So we're probably going to insert a local script in, let's say, starter player with starter player scripts. We're going to hit the plus sign, and then we're going to insert a local script. So just like with Game Pass service, we need to prompt the purchase to the player. And the way we're going to do that is use a service called marketplace service. So we're just going to say local marketplace service equals game:get service marketplace service. And then the next thing we're going to do is get access to our local player. So we're going to say local player equals game.players.localPlayer. And then we're going to get the product ID of the developer product we just created. So we're going to say local product ID equals, and then we're going to paste in our ID that we copied from the game settings tab. So this is our initial setup we have so far. What we need to do now is prompt this purchase to the player. And this is actually really easy. All we need to do is just say marketplace service prompt product purchase. And then we're going to say open and close parentheses. We're going to pass in our player instance, and then we're going to pass the product ID, which we have this in a variable already. So this is basically how you prompt a developer product purchase to the player. The only thing that's different about this is we're saying prompt product purchase rather than before, it was prompt Game Pass purchase. But this time, it's going to be a developer product. So this is the only difference we're going to make here. Okay, but we've just gotten through the easy part. But now, at this point, things are not going to be as straightforward when it comes to handling the purchase of this product that we've now prompted. So I want you to imagine how this works. When we prompt the purchase to the player, and then the player does decide to buy this product, we have to essentially send that information to the server so that the server knows that this player has bought a developer product, and we need to be able to process this purchase by creating a receipt of the product the player just bought. And we need to figure out what benefits we want to give to the player for that product that they just bought. And we also need to make sure that the purchase is successful. And there can be a lot of issues that come about when we don't know how to properly handle purchases that don't become successful. So that's something we have to take care of when we're processing the purchases for developer products. I hope that part makes sense. So with that being said, what we're going to do now is create a script on the right side of the screen. Let's just make this inside of server script service. We're going to hit the plus sign, insert a script, and here's what we're going to do. So let's go to our local script and let's copy the marketplace service declaration and then paste that right into here. And then we're also going to make a reference to the player's service as well. So we're going to say game:get service players, just like this. Okay, so most likely we're going to have more than one developer product within the game. And if that is the case, we need to have functions associated with that developer product for when the player does buy that specific product. Like, let's say the player buys a 100 plus walk speed developer product. We need to make a function that pertains specifically to the benefit of obtaining 100 plus speed versus a different product. We use functions for each individual function. So essentially what we need to do is make a table full of product functions, and this is what it's going to look like. We're going to say local product functions equals open and close hard brackets. So once we have this, our key for each individual product function is basically going to be the product ID of each single product. So if we were to go back to our local script, this is what our product ID is here. Let's just copy this. And then what we're going to do is populate this products function by saying product functions, open and close hard brackets. And then we're going to paste in our product ID. And we're going to set this equal to a new function, open and close parentheses. We're going to pass in the receipt that Roblox has created for this product that the player has created. So we're just going to say receipt, and then we're also going to pass in the player as well, like this, and then we're going to hit enter. So essentially what's happening here is for our product functions table, our key is going to be a specific developer product, and we're going to set this equal to a function that we're going to activate if the player does successfully buy this developer product. And so if we wanted to do this for another developer product, we could just copy this, paste it down here, and just have this be a different product ID. It's essentially the same thing. It's just a matter of what we do in these bodies specifically. So right now we're just going to delete this. We're just going to go with 1 for right now. Okay, so let's say we want this product to give 100 plus speed to the player every time they buy it. Or we could just make it 50. It doesn't have to be 100. So we could just say 50 plus speed for this developer product. What we need to do first is access the humanoid, but we need to do the character first. So we're going to say local character equals player dot character, and then we're going to access the humanoid by saying local humanoid equals character find first child open and close parentheses humanoid, and then we're going to check if that humanoid does exist. We're going to say if humanoid, then we're just going to say humanoid dot walk speed plus equals 50. So this is essentially saying take the current humanoid walk speed and add 50 to that. So by default, the walk speed is 16. So if we add 50, then we will definitely see a very noticeable difference. So we've granted the benefits, but what we need to do is return true so that we know that this purchase has been successful. And I'm going to show you why this is important in just a little bit. So we're just going to return true. That's basically all we're going to be doing for this. And this is how we create a function that can execute the benefits that we're going to give to the player. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is figure out how we can process the receipts that Roblox is creating for the developer products that the players are buying. We need to do this by creating a function that basically processes the receipts for us and then set that function to a callback for the process receipt property in Marketplace service. I'm going to show you what that looks like right now. So here's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to, like I said, create the callback function for processing our receipts. We're just going to say local function process receipt, open and close parentheses. And then what's going to be passed into here is a receipt info table. So then we're going to hit enter like this. And so this is the basic structure of our process receipt. But now what we need to do is set Marketplace Services process receipt callback to this function that we just created. So down here, we're going to say Marketplace Service dot process receipt equals process receipt. So basically our function that we just created up here. So when we say process receipt, and then every time a player buys something, it's going to pass in a receipt info table that basically tells us information about the product the player just bought. And there are two pieces of information that we do want from this. The first one is the user ID, and then the second one is the product ID of the thing the player just bought. So what we're going to do is say local user ID equals receipt info dot player ID. And then the next one is going to be the product ID. So we're going to say local product ID equals receipt info dot product ID. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is get the player using the user ID that we just got. So we're going to say local player equals players colon get player by user ID, and then we're going to pass in the user ID like this. And then we're going to check if this player does exist. So if player, then what we're now going to do is try and get this product function for this developer products that we have here for 50+ speed. Since now we have the product ID within our control to be able to know which products the player bought. So we're basically going to wrap this in a variable by saying local handler equals product functions, and then in these hard brackets, what we're going to do is put in the product ID. Like, let's say this product ID was this one right here. We're going to put that inside of here, and that's how we're essentially going to find this function for the handler right here. So handler is now set equal to this function. Now that we have our function, let's wrap this in a p call. We're going to say local success comma result equals p call, and we're going to be writing this p call like so. We're going to first pass in our handler function. So we're going to pass in the handler, and then whatever's going to be after this is going to be the arguments that are inside of this function. So the first one is going to be the receipt info, and then the second one is going to be the player. So we're just simply going to pass in the player, and that is how we're going to structure our p call like so. And we're going to check if this was successful. We're going to say if success, then we're going to tell Roblox that this purchase has indeed been successful. And the way we tell Roblox that this has been successful is we return an enum value that basically says that this is a product decision of it being granted. So this is what it's going to look like. We're going to say return enum.product purchase decision dot. And as you can see, there's two results here. So there's not processed yet and then purchase granted. This one is going to be purchase granted because this has been successful. Not processed yet basically means that the purchase is still happening, but there seems to be some issues going on with it. So we need to make sure that we are handling this situation properly. So we're going to hit purchase granted, and that's basically what it's going to do here. So if this was not successful though, so we're just going to say else like this. We're going to, let's say we're going to make an error message here that we're just going to say failed to make the product purchase. And then we can just pass in the receipt info so that we know exactly what kind of what Game Pass failed from this decision. Okay, and then finally, we have to make sure to handle what happens if the purchase has not been granted. We're basically just gonna go down here and say return enum.product purchase decision dot not processed yet. So if none of this works in here, like if the player does not exist, if the handler does not work, then it's just going to go down here and return not processed yet, so that Roblox can handle whatever's going to happen here, so that the player does not get charged if the product does fail. So this is our basic structure for handling our developer product. I hope this made sense to you so far, but let's go back to our local script, and I'm actually going to add a task.wait for like about 2 seconds so that the game gives me enough time to load into the game. So now we're going to go into the game and see the result of this prompt that's being shown right here. Okay, so it says right here, would you like to buy my first product? I'm going to click this, and then what's going to happen is the purchase has been successful. Now, if I run, you can see that I'm actually moving faster now because I bought the because I bought the developer product compared to my walk speed being 16. The walk speed now should be the walk speed should now be 66, as you can see right here, because I successfully bought the developer product. So it's pretty much working as expected, and that's how you handle developer product purchases in your Roblox game. Okay, now let's say we wanted to get product information for a specific developer product so that we can use it to either know what information this product does have, or we could just display it in our game if we have the information to the product itself. What we can do is go to our local script, and we can basically just use a function that Marketplace Service has called getProductInfo, pass in our product ID so that we can get back a table full of information about it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to wrap this in a p call by saying local success, comma, product info equals p call function, open close parentheses, enter. And then we're simply just going to return marketplace service colon get product info, open and close parentheses. So we're first going to pass in our product ID over here, and then we need an info type, and this takes in an enum info type. So we're basically just going to say enum.info type. And as you can see, there's a lot of things we can select from. What we are interested in is product, because that is the product type that we are looking for in this case. So now that we have our product type, let's basically just go. So now that we have our product type, if we want to know what's inside of this table, we can just loop through all of the keys and values that are inside of this table. So we're just going to say for key, comma, value in pairs, open and close parentheses, product info, do. Oh, sorry, I forgot to put the do there. We're just simply going to print key, comma, value, just like this. So now that we have this, let's go into the game and hit play. So what should happen is after about 2 seconds, it should print out all of the information of the developer products that we created in this game. So we have something like the asset type, the target ID, the minimum membership, when it was created, is limited, is for sale. There's a whole bunch of stuff we can look at here for this product information. So that is how you can access product information about a specific developer product if you need to use this in your game. So for this last part of the video, it's actually a pretty important one, and that is keeping track of our purchase history for each player playing the game. And the reason this is very important is because this is the only way we know if a player has actually bought a product or not, because Roblox isn't going to do it themselves automatically. It's up to us as the developers to be able to keep track of the purchase history that the player does have. And it's not as intuitive as game passes, so it's going to be a little tricky to keep track of player history. So I'm going to try and walk through so that you can understand how this stuff works. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to our script, and at the very top, we're going to get access to the data store service. We're going to say local data store service equals game get service data store service. And then we're going to access and then we're going to make a purchase history data store. So we're just going to say local purchase history equals data store service colon get data store, open and close parentheses, and we're going to call this purchase history. So now we're going to come down here and make a few modifications to our process receipt callback. The first thing we're going to do is figure out how we're going to structure our data store to know if the player has bought this product with like this specific transaction that they've done. With receipt info, there's a property here that's called receipt info.purchase ID. So this is essentially a value that is very unique to this specific purchase that this player is making. So it would be a product that this player bought at this specific time, and like anything else that ties into this specific purchase ID that has been generated for us with this receipt. So this is what we're going to use to determine this is what we're going to use to determine this specific transaction that this player has made. So we're going to delete this. So what we need to do is create a player product ID for this specific transaction that this player is making. So what we're going to do is drop 2 lines and say local player product key. And sorry, I meant to say key, not ID. Like this is going to be the key used for our data store. So we're going to set this equal to a key that looks something like this. We're going to say user ID ... for concatenation. And then we're going to put in an underscore and then ... We're going to concatenate this again with the receipt info.purchase ID. So the way this is going to be structured is we're going to have our player's user ID, and then this is going to be separated with the purchase ID, the unique ID of the receipt that of the product that we're buying. And so now down here, we're going to make a P call so that we can use get async with the data store so that we know that we're trying to retrieve this exact information from here. So we're going to say local success error message equals P call function open and close parentheses enter. And then what we're going to do is, in order to determine whether this actually was successful or not, we're just gonna make another variable up here by saying local purchased equals false, and then we're going to set purchased down here equal to the get async function. We're gonna say purchase history colon get async open and close parentheses, and as the key, it's going to be our player product ID, like this. And so once we do this, we're going to check if this was successful. So we're going to say if success, then, but not just success, we're also going to say if the purchase was successful as well. Then what we're going to do is simply just return the purchase granted down here regardless, because if we know that this is already in the data store, then we already know that this is a successful purchase, so we don't have to do anything else after that. So we're just going to pass it in just like that. And this should be said player product key instead of ID, my mistake. And then what we're going to do is say else if not success. So if this was not successful, then what we're going to do is simply just print out an error message by saying purchase has not been successful. Just like that. I hope this part makes sense to you. When we are determining the key for this purchase history, it's basically going to be the player's user ID with the purchase ID of this specific transaction. And we're going to check inside of this purchase history data store if this does exist. And if it does exist, then we're basically going to return the value that's passed back from the purchase history using this product key. And purchase is determined by either true or false. So false is if it doesn't exist already, and true if it already does exist in the data store. So that's why we check if it's successful and if it's also been purchased already. Then we're just going to say that purchase has been granted. We don't need to do anything else after that. But if it was not successful, then we're just going to say that purchase has not been successful. So that's only one part of it. But that is an important part that we need to add into our script. And I hope this part has made sense to you, at least so far. Well, since we do have an error message, we actually could just concatenate this with the error message down here. So we can just say error message like this, because we basically just have it right here. So this is basically one way we can tell more information about this error message if it does ever come down here. Okay, so we have the script down here that basically gives the benefits to the player if they buy a specific product. But what we need to do now is wrap this in a P call by first checking if this purchase is already in the data store. If this purchase was already granted to the player so that the script doesn't randomly just duplicate the benefits for the player if they accidentally do buy it twice. And we're going to do a second check to make sure that this product has already been granted to the player. And we're going to utilize this using update async, if you remember that with Datastores. This is how it's going to look. We're going to drop a line down here before we declare player. We're going to say local success, comma, is purchase recorded equals pcall function, open and close parentheses, enter. And then for this Boolean right here, is purchase recorded, we're going to set this equal to a return value given by this Datastores update async function. So this is basically what it's going to look like. You can just copy what I do and I'll explain what's going to happen here. We're going to say return purchase history colon update async open and close parentheses. We're going to pass in the key of the player product key. And then we're going to, and then the second argument is going to be a function with a passed parameter in here called already purchased. And then we're going to hit enter like this. We're going to check if already purchased is true. Then we're just simply going to return true. And then there's going to be more things we're going to do down here in just a little bit. But first, I want to explain what's happening here with this code snippet. So we're basically creating another p call with is purchase recorded. This is going to be a Boolean that we're going to return. And we're going to set this equal to a p call function of this return value that's going to be set to is purchase recorded from this update async function. So essentially what's happening here is with this player product key, this key in particular with this purchase history, if this gets updated, like let's say the value for this product key inside of purchase history gets updated, like the value gets updated, is we're going to create a new function with a passed argument already purchased to then have some sort of return value inside of this update async function to then be placed back into is purchase recorded. Because as you know, if we take the player product key, put it inside of purchase history, get the value from that key in the purchase history, that value is going to be placed into the function parameter here inside of the parameter for this function that we just created, already purchased. Already purchased is the value of whatever we got from the purchase history using this player product key. I hope that part made sense to you, and it's important that you do understand that part. So if we see if the purchase has already been successful, then we're just simply just going to return true. And if not, then we're going to continue doing more checks down here. So literally what we're going to do is take this code snippet with the granting the benefits for the player. We're going to cut this, paste it down here, and then we're also going to return true down here as well. Like at the very end of this update async function for the is purchase recorded Boolean. But since we've structured this a little differently, since we're going to return true no matter what, instead what we're going to do is return a Boolean of false if any of these checks go wrong. So instead of this if else statement right here, what we're going to do instead is say if not success or not result, then we're going to throw in an error saying purchase has been unsuccessful. And then we can write down the product that failed. So we're just going to say receipt info.product ID. And now there's one final step, and that is determining the product decision, because we're not just going to rely on this just being not processed yet all the time. So we're just going to delete this. And what we're going to do instead is make an if else structure here. So the first thing we're going to do is check if it was not successful. Like if this success variable here was just not successful, then what we're going to do is give an error by saying purchase data store has been unsuccessful, something like that. And then we're going to return an enum.productPurchaseDecision.not processed yet. And then we can make another else if is purchased recorded equals nil. So what this means is if the purchase that we did, like if there was no value that was updated in the data store was changed, then we're basically going to also return not processed yet because there was an issue going on with that. And then if both of these are not the case, then that means the purchase has been successful. So we're going to say return. We're basically just going to take this and then we're going to return purchase granted. Okay, that was kind of a lot to take in, but we have finished our product. We have finished our data store script for handling all of these different scenarios that we might have when it comes to handling our developer product purchases. It is kind of sophisticated at first, but if you do understand what's happening here with the script, then you'll have a much better time implementing this in the future, especially when you incorporate more game passes and you decide to work more analytically with all of these purchases that are happening in your game. So that is basically everything that has to do with developer products, and I hope you found this video to be very informative. Like I said, I hope you found this video to be very informative. It was a bit longer than I thought, but that's because I want you to get a full grasp of how I want you to get a full grasp of how these things work, because I know data stores is one of the most confusing topics to new developers. And so I wanted to take the time to go through step by step on my understanding of using data stores with developer products and things like that. So if you want to refresh your memory on the basics of data stores, then I will link to my data stores video that I'll have for you right here in this video. But with that being said, I hope you found this video to be helpful, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care.